Welcome to this video on functions and methods in Dart. After watching this video, you'll be able to describe functions and methods in Dart, identify function parameters in Dart, explain how closures work. Functions and methods in Dart are essential building blocks for writing reusable and maintainable code. Understanding how to define and use functions and methods will help you create a foundation for efficient Dart applications. First, let's explore what functions are and how they are used. Functions are reusable blocks of code that perform a specific task. In Dart, you define a function using the void keyword for functions that do not return a value or specify a return type for functions that do. Let's look at how you can define and use functions in Dart. Greet is a simple function that prints the message "Hello World." The function add takes two integers, adds them, and then returns the result. And main is a special function that Dart looks for as an entry point to start the application with void indicating that it returns nothing. Dart supports different types of parameters and functions. By understanding and using different types of parameters in Dart, you can tailor your functions to handle scenarios, such as providing default values, and you can improve code clarity by naming specific arguments. Dart provides powerful tools to handle various scenarios and function calls. The four types are required, optional, named, and default parameters. Let's explore each of these functions. Required parameters are those that must be provided when calling the function. Required parameters are positional. In this code, the multiply function takes two required parameters, a and b. When calling multiply, both arguments must be provided. Optional parameters can either be positional or named. They allow you to omit some arguments when calling a function. Positional optional parameters are specified using square brackets. In this code, the full name function has one required parameter, first name, and two optional positional parameters, middle name and last name. If middle name and last name are not provided, they default to null. The double question mark operator, also called null coalescing operator, is used to provide a default empty string if middle name or last name are null. It is used to return the value on the left if it is not null, otherwise it returns the value on the right. Named parameters are specified using curly braces and can be made required or given default values. They are called by name when invoking the function. In this code, the greet function has one required named parameter, name, and one optional named parameter, greeting, with a default value. The required keyword indicates that the name parameter is required. When calling greet, you must provide a value for name, but greeting is optional. Dart allows you to provide default values for parameters. These parameters can be used with both positional and named optional parameters. In this example, the describe function has two named parameters, age and city, with default values. If age and city are not provided when calling describe, the default values are used. Another important feature is arrow functions. Dart allows for concise function expressions using the arrow syntax, which is especially useful for short functions. Methods are functions that are associated with an object. They are defined within a class and can operate on instances of that class. In Dart, methods are used to perform actions on the data contained within the objects. Let's look at some examples using existing classes in Dart. The list class in Dart provides several methods to manipulate and interact with list data. In this code, add adds a new element to the end of the list. Changing the code to remove removes the first occurrence of the specified element from the list. Or changing the code to contains tells the program to check if the list contains the specified element. Closures are a powerful feature in Dart that allows functions to capture and store references to variables in their surrounding scope, also known as the lexical scope, even after the scope in which the variables were declared has finished executing. The variables remain accessible to the function. Let's break down this with an example. The first line of code defines a function makeAdder that takes an integer addBy as an argument and returns another function, or in other words, a closure. The next code returns a closure that takes an integer I and adds it to addBy. Then var add2 equals makeAdder2 creates a closure where addBy is 2. The code var add5 equals makeAdder5 creates another closure where addBy is 5. Then the code uses the closures. This code calls the closures created by makeAdder2 with I as 3. This results in 2 plus 3, which is 5. And this code calls the closure created by makeAdder5 with I as 3. This results in 5 plus 3, which is 8. In Dart, closures can remember the lexical scope they were created in. This is why add2 remembers that add_by was 2 and add5 remembers that add_by was 5, even though add_by was declared outside the return functions. In this video, you learned that functions in Dart are reusable blocks of code that perform a specific task. Required parameters must be provided when calling the function, and optional parameters can be omitted when calling a function. Named parameters can be required or given default values, and default parameters are allowed in Dart to provide default values for parameters. Methods are functions that are associated with an object, such as the list class, which provides methods to interact with the list data. Closures allow functions to capture and store references to variables in their surrounding scope.